Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at, whichever applies. This is A Marvelous, and I'm back. Thank you for tuning in. I'd like to give a shout out to the ancestors known and unknown, all the spirits that surround me, that have guided me to this place. Thank you, and Ashe. Thank all of you that have gotten readings from me this week. I greatly appreciate that. So, thank you. I hope it helped out. To all of you that's watching, thank you again. Before I begin, I just want to say, if you like the content on this video or any other ones, please subscribe, hit that bell, because the bell notifies you, because YouTube is always changing and censoring certain subject matters. So hit the bell so you can get the alert. And that's that. I would like to give a shout out to King and Queen Radio.com and BrooklynRadioStation.com. Sister DeBong, DJ Shine. I'm on the radio finally, so thank all of you. A lot of that is because of the YouTube messages and people seeing that and things of that nature. So thank you. The message is expounding freedom, liberation of yourself. That's the mission. So again, thank you, Sister DeBong, King and Queen Radio Station, DJ Shine. Much appreciated. This is the super blue blood moon. So this is a pretty big one. It's a blue moon because it's the second full moon in 1 month. So anytime that happens, it's a blue moon. So this particular video, I'm going to cover not just about the moon, but I'm going to cover anger, right? So I dedicate this to all my Leos out there. So all my Leos, this is dedicated to you, and by extension to my Aquarius. So because they're the opposite signs, polar signs. So this is about anger and the ego, and how that affects you in many ways. A lot of people know how that affects you, but astrologically, I'm going to show how this moon is very symbolic of ego and the anger, and kind of walk through what this means and how, you can actually correct that, because this is something that I'm still working on. So we are in Sun in Aquarius, Moon in Leo. So basically, in its essence, Leo at its core represents being at one with your ego and how your ego is going to be expressed, right? So when you have an Aquarius and Leo full moon, basically that's, to sum it up, establishing how you want your ego to be expressed. Because sometimes when it comes to your ego, most people don't know if it's okay to have an ego or to express the ego, or even what the ego is. So it comes out in ways that's not really connecting with how the person's character is, or it reflects the person's character, but they really don't know how to direct it or channel it. So that's important. Leo deals with anger, right? So anger rules the heart. So anytime you get angry, it breaks down your heart, because every single emotion is linked to a disease or some kind of organ breakdown or organ improvement. So anger is ruled by Leo, right? That's one of the emotional states that Leo governs, and it's ruled by the heart. So anytime you get angry, anytime you deal with issues that make you angry, anything with anger, that's a Leo issue. So they say that the opposite of fixing that, right, is to pretty much address the object of what's making you angry. If someone's making you angry or a situation, it's normally we're taught to go right to the situation, and maybe that'll release the anger. But it's seen that that's not necessarily true. A lot of times when you hit the person and you approach the person and express to them why you're angry, sometimes it still lingers, because now you've triggered the other person to kind of feel a certain way because you told them this, and then you start playing the blame game. So that doesn't really work at times. So it says that the way to get rid of anger is through forgiveness. So forgiveness is also a polar aspect of Leo. So in this super blood moon, blue moon, blood moon, the themes to cover is really the proper ways to deal with anger and the best ways to address anger. And that's with forgiveness. So we're in Moon and Leo. Moon and Leo represents identifying what kind of ego you're going to have, and admitting that secretly you might want to have some shine. So a lot of people, they feel uncomfortable when they're in the limelight or when they're around a lot of people. And what that does is it misplaces them, and it makes them feel as if they should not have an ego, or they shouldn't be arrogant, or they shouldn't be a little bit assertive. What this moon and what Moon and Leo represents is you identifying in what way you're going to express your ego, and admitting that you might want the limelight, that you might want shine, because there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it's detrimental when inside of you you want to shine, you want to be seen, but you repress it and you hold it in. What that does is it causes you to exhibit personality traits that don't reflect who you are, and it could actually rub people the wrong way. So during this moon, it's very important to ask yourself, what are the things that you want to be noticed for? Because Moon and Leo also deals with appreciation, right? What are the things that you want to be appreciated for? Because if you don't make those things clear with people because of past guilt, because of family issues, then it turns inward. And what happens is when that happens, you tend to pretty much act out in ways that can be a little bit agitating towards the people around you. So that's why we have to look at its opposite of Aquarius. Aquarius is the water bearer, right? You see its sign, it pours out water across humanity. Basically what Aquarian, because we're in Aquarius right now, right? So what Aquarians deal with is the ability to go through emotions and emotional states without being taken over by them, right? So imagine when you feel something, that emotion takes you over. When you feel angry, when you feel happy, whatever the emotion is, we have a tendency to sink in that emotion. The lesson of Aquarius is to show us to go through that emotion from kind of like a person in a movie theater where you watch the emotion, you participate in it, but when the emotion is going on and when you leave the emotion, it's not something that sticks with you, right? So you kind of detach yourself from it. So you get the blank feeling of it without the actual consequence or benefit of it. You know, you're kind of like a neutral party to the emotion, and that's what Aquarius represents. The reason why Aquarius and a Leo are opposite is because Leo basks in the emotion. They bask in it. They embody it. Aquarians detach themselves from it. The thing is, if you detach yourself too much from emotion, you get to the point to where you start thinking that you don't have emotions or you don't have these feelings, hence you don't have an ego. And when you operate that way, which Aquarians operate that way, they kind of come off in a sense in which anyone that does have emotions, they kind of don't understand it, or it's like, well, why are you acting this way? That's not logical, you know. So pushing emotions away and saying you don't have an ego in a sense could make you extremely more arrogant, which is also a trait of Aquarius as well as Leo. So this moon represents understanding what your ego is, right, and where it lies. Now, one way to identify your ego is by looking at what pisses you off. If you look at all of the things that piss you off, all of the people that piss you off, you'll start to notice a consistent pattern of reactions and events whenever you get angry, right? That is a core indicator of where your ego is. If you look at the things that piss you off, and especially piss you off constantly, that is an attachment, right? So the Leo Aquarius dichotomy deals with attachment and detachment. So anger has to deal a lot with what you're attached to. What you're attached to, whether it's your desires, your wants, your passions, whatever it is you're attached to, 10 to 1, that is the link to your ego, and that is the link to your anger. So if you want to understand how to relinquish the anger, right, it's easy to say just forgive. But how do you forgive something when the pain and the anger is so deep and is constantly triggered by people and events that keep putting the salt in the wounds every time something happens? There's a show that I suggest people watch. It's called The Magicians. And in one of the episodes, two of the magicians were talking. And one of the magicians was disappointed with what he thought magic would be. And he said, you know, I thought magic would be something other than what it is, but it seems to be more limitations on it. It is not what I expected. And the other magician said to him, You know what the key to getting what you want is? The key to getting what you want is to be so upset and disgusted that you don't want it anymore. I said, wow, that's heavy. Now, this is in the context of magic and all of that stuff. So, the key to getting what you want is to be so disgusted about the things that you want that you no longer want it anymore. That's heavy. And if you notice, a lot of times you tend to get things that you don't ask for, that you don't care about. Or sometimes things happen to you and you're like, why is this happening to me? I didn't ask for this. I asked for something else. That right there is a spiritual principle, meaning that the more you're attached to something, right, the more it's stripped away from you and the harder it is to attain. That is why it said that when you do something you love, the money will come. Because if you detach yourself from the money aspect of it, and you embody yourself in what it is that you're doing and not focus on that aspect, things start to come at you. So if you look at all the things in your life that you're attached to, most likely those are the things that's causing you the pain. And if it's something that you've been trying to attain and you haven't, maybe you're too attached to attaining it. And that's the problem. So if you want to get something, maybe the goal is not to be attached to it. Maybe the goal is to be non-attached, which is Aquarius, right? So how do you establish this Aquarius Leo balance, right, of attachment and detachment? Because if you're not attached to anything, right, which is the Aquarius lesson, then how do you identify with anything or anybody, right? It's becoming attached to something that you actually learn what pisses you off, that you actually learn and go through the different sea of emotions. That's what Leo represents, right? Because Leo's the sun. The sun touches everything. So if you don't go through these wide array of things or people, how could you even identify what it is that you're truly attached to? So that's the dichotomy. And with that, I want to read something that I think is interesting. I do suggest you get this book. It's a very, very deep book. It shows Life Energy by John Diamond. I've reviewed this book before, and I think this is very key in understanding emotions, especially for this moon. And I want to read something about the heart meridian, right? Because like I said, Leo deals with the heart. Leo deals with the negative aspects of the emotion of the heart, and Leo is anger. The positive is love and forgiveness, right? So I'm going to read something. Anger, as previously discussed, the predominant negative emotion relating to the heart meridian is anger. This emotional state and problems with this meridian are very prominent in patients who have heart ailments. Examining the origin of the word anger, we can see relationships between the heart and anger, which we otherwise would not have suspected. The IE root from which anger is derived is ang, which meant to choke or oppress. So anger chokes and oppresses by its root definition. This, of course, is the exact feeling that people have when they suffer from the cardiac condition angina pectoris. The word angina is derived from this same root. In Latin, the word is angere, which means to strangle. In Middle English, anger was more passive than it is now. It meant trouble and affliction, no longer having the more violent connotation of strangling and torture. Now, the word has yet another meaning. It means, in a sense, retribution in the feeling provoked against a person who has troubled, afflicted, or tortured us. Perhaps anger was best described by John Locke. Anger is uneasiness and discomfiture of the mind upon the receipt of an injury with the present purpose of revenge. It is evident that Locke's definition that anger has revenge as its purpose. To stop the negative effects of the anger, there must be a counteracting quality of forgiveness. To forgive is to pardon. South wrote, anger is, according to some, a transient hatred, or at least very like it. As we know from our testing, hatred is a basic negative thymus attribute, while anger is associated with the heart meridian. So, with that said, anytime you feel anger, there's also a connection to retribution, right? So therefore, Leo also deals with retribution, right? Leo also deals with retaliation, and it also deals with forgiveness. So in order to counteract this hatred